I never thought a simple medication chart would destroy my life. It was 2 a.m. on a Tuesday in the ICU at Memorial General Hospital in downtown Chicago, and I was staring at Mrs. Rodriguez's file with my hand shaking. The morphine dosage didn't match what I'd administered 4 hours earlier. Someone had altered it. Again. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I pulled up 3 more patient files on the computer terminal. Same pattern. Dosages changed. Times modified. Signatures that looked nothing like mine. My stomach dropped as I realized what I was looking at: systematic falsification of medical records. People's lives were being gambled with, and someone was covering their tracks. I grabbed my phone and took pictures of the screens before anyone could see. The ICU was eerily quiet except for the steady beep of ventilators and heart monitors. Most patients were sedated, their families long gone for the night. Perfect time to investigate without interruption. "Sarah, what are you doing up there?" Supervisor Janet Morrison's voice cut through the silence like a blade. I hadn't heard her come up behind me. Just checking on the Rodriguez case. Her family had questions about the pain management protocol. At 2 a.m., Janet's eyes narrowed as she moved closer to the computer screen. "You know those records are sensitive. Chain of custody and all that. I minimized the windows quickly, but not before catching Janet's expression. She looked nervous, almost guilty. This woman had been my mentor for 3 years, taught me everything about ICU protocols. Now she was acting like I'd caught her stealing from the medicine cabinet. "Janet, I noticed some discrepancies in the dosage logs. Mrs. Rodriguez's morphine administration doesn't match what I recorded during my evening rounds. Someone changed the entries after I input them." "Stop right there, Janet's voice dropped to a whisper, and she glanced around the ICU nervously. "Sarah, you're new to night shifts. Sometimes the system autocorrects entries based on doctor's orders that come in late. It's normal, but it wasn't normal. I'd been a registered nurse for 8 years, worked at 3 different hospitals. Autocorrections don't forge signatures or change timestamps retroactively. Janet knew that as well as I did. I think we should report this to administration. If there's a system glitch affecting patient records." "No." Janet's hand grabbed my wrist tighter than necessary. "Listen to me carefully. You're going to forget what you think you saw tonight. Delete those photos from your phone right now. My heart started racing. How did she know about the photos? Had she been watching me longer than I realized? "Janet, what's going on here? If patients are receiving incorrect dosages because of record tampering, meet me in conference room B tomorrow at 3 p.m. HR wants to speak with you about your concerns." Janet's tone had shifted from nervous to cold and professional. "And Sarah, don't discuss this with anyone else on staff. Patient confidentiality protocols, you understand. I watched Janet walk away, her white sneakers squeaking against the polished hospital floor. The next 18 hours felt like a countdown to execution. Every time a doctor or administrator passed by, I wondered if they knew what I discovered. Every time my phone buzzed, I expected a text telling me not to come to work. During my break at 6 a.m., I sat in my Honda Civic in the hospital parking garage and uploaded the photos to 3 different cloud storage accounts. If Memorial General thought they could silence me with threats and intimidation, they were about to learn otherwise. Mrs. Rodriguez deserved proper pain management, not whatever corrupt scheme was being covered up with falsified records. The morning Chicago wind whipped through the concrete structure as early shift nurses arrived for work. I recognized most of them, good people who genuinely cared about patients. How many of them knew what was happening? How many had been silenced the same way Janet was trying to silence me? My shift ended at 7 a.m., but I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Mrs. Rodriguez lying in bed, trusting us to provide accurate medical care while someone manipulated her treatment records. What if she wasn't the only one? What if this corruption went deeper than altered medication logs? The clock on my nightstand seemed to mock me as the hours crawled toward 3 p.m. I changed clothes 4 times, rehearsed what I'd say to HR, and deleted nothing from my phone despite Janet's demands. Whatever was waiting for me in conference room B, I was going in prepared. Has visto algo así en tu trabajo? Comenta tu experiencia y se escribe para saber qué pasó en esa reunión. Conference room B felt like a courtroom designed for intimidation. The mahogany table stretched endlessly under harsh LED lights, and 3 people sat across from me like a tribunal. Janet avoided eye contact completely. Next to her sat Marcus Webb, head of human resources, a man whose smile never reached his eyes. The third person introduced herself as Linda Chong, legal counsel, and she was already taking notes before I'd even sat down. Sarah, thank you for coming. We understand you had some concerns about our record-keeping systems last night, Marcus began, his voice dripping with false concern. Concerns? I found evidence of systematic falsification of patient medical records. Someone is altering dosage information and forging nurse signatures. That's a very serious accusation, Linda interrupted, her pen clicking ominously. Do you have any proof of these alleged irregularities? I pulled out my phone, but Marcus raised his hand to stop me. Before we proceed, Sarah, we need you to understand the gravity of this situation. Patient confidentiality laws are extremely strict. Taking photographs of medical records without authorization is a federal crime under HIPAA. We could have you arrested right now. The room felt smaller suddenly. My hands grew clammy as I realized they'd set a trap. Report the corruption, get accused of violating patient privacy. Stay silent, let people receive inadequate medical care. I was trying to document evidence of malpractice. Were you? Or were you planning to sell sensitive patient information to medical malpractice attorneys? Linda's accusation hit like a physical blow. That's insane. I've been working here for 3 years. Check my record. Oh, we have? Marcus slid a manila folder across the table. 2 written warnings for tardiness, 1 complaint from a patient's family about your bedside manner, and now this. It paints a picture of someone looking for a lawsuit payday. The folder contained documents I'd never seen before. Fabricated complaints, backdated warnings, a complete fictional employment history designed to destroy my credibility. They'd been planning this longer than I'd realized. None of this is real. You created these documents. Can you prove that? Linda asked sweetly. Janet finally spoke up, her voice barely audible. Sarah, just sign the agreement. It's better for everyone. Marcus pushed a thick contract across the table. The heading read, Non-Disclosure and Non-Disparagement Agreement. Page after page of legal jargon that essentially boiled down to, shut up or we'll destroy you. This NDA covers any and all interactions you may have had with Memorial General Hospital systems, including but not limited to patient records, administrative procedures, and staff communications. In exchange, we're prepared to offer you a generous severance package and positive employment references. How generous? I asked, buying time while I read the contract's fine print. $50,000. Tax-free. Plus we'll ensure your nursing license remains clean with the state board. The threat was crystal clear. Sign this, take the money, and stay quiet about patient safety violations. Refuse, and they'd manufacture enough evidence to destroy my career permanently. I need time to think about this. No, Linda's voice turned sharp. This offer expires when you leave this room. Sign now, or we file a complaint with the state nursing board tomorrow morning. We have enough documentation to prove you violated HIPAA regulations and compromised patient safety through unauthorized access to medical records. I looked at Janet, hoping for some sign of the mentor who'd taught me proper patient care protocols. Instead, she stared at her hands like a broken woman. Janet, tell them what really happened. You know those records were altered. I don't know what you're talking about, Janet whispered without looking up. Marcus leaned forward with predatory confidence. Sarah, let me be clear about your options. Sign this agreement, take the money, and walk away with your reputation intact. Or refuse, and we'll make sure you never work as a nurse again. Not in Chicago, not anywhere. We have connections at hospitals across the country. The pen felt heavy in my hand as I stared at the signature line. $50,000 would cover my student loans and rent for over a year. But Mrs. Rodriguez's face kept flashing in my mind. How many other patients were receiving improper care while administrators cover their tracks with hush money? What guarantee do I have that patient safety won't be compromised if I sign this? That's not your concern anymore, Linda replied coldly. You'll be terminated effective immediately either way. The only question is whether you leave as a disgraced nurse facing federal charges or as someone who chose to handle a misunderstanding professionally. My phone buzzed with a text message. Without thinking, I glanced at the screen. It was from my roommate. Hope your meeting goes well. Remember what you always say about doing the right thing, even when it's hard. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd given that advice to dozens of nursing students over the years. Now I was being tested on whether I actually believed it. I need to use the restroom before I decide. Of course. Marcus smiled like a shark. But remember, this offer disappears the moment you walk out that door and signed. In the bathroom, I turned on the faucet and activated my phone's voice recorder. Whatever happened next, I wanted documentation of my own. This hospital thought they could buy my silence, but they'd made one crucial mistake. They assumed I cared more about money than patient safety. They were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. I walked back into that conference room with my phone recording in my scrubs pocket and looked Marcus Webb straight in the eye. I'm not signing your NDA. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Linda Chang's pen stopped clicking, and Janet finally looked up with something that might have been respect. Or terror. That's unfortunate, Marcus said, already reaching for his phone. Linda, please prepare the HIPAA violation complaint for filing with the State Board first thing tomorrow. Wait. I pulled out my phone and set it on the table. Before you destroy my career, you might want to listen to this. I hit play on the recording I'd made 20 minutes earlier in the bathroom. My own voice filled the room. This is Sarah Mitchell, RN, recording on March 15th at 3:47 p.m. I'm being coerced by Memorial General Hospital Administration to sign an NDA covering up systematic patient record falsification. They've threatened to fabricate HIPAA violations if I don't comply. Marcus lunged for my phone, but I was faster. That's just the backup. The original is already uploaded to cloud storage with instructions to release it if anything happens to me. You're making a serious mistake, Linda hissed. Recording this conversation without consent is illegal in Illinois. Actually, it's not. Illinois is a one-party consent state for recordings. I should know. I researched it after Janet threatened me last night. The power dynamic in the room shifted dramatically. Now they were the ones looking nervous. Besides, I did more research after our bathroom break. Turns out I'm not the first nurse to have concerns about record keeping here. Remember Kelly Santos? She worked ICU night shift 2 years ago. Janet's face went white. Marcus and Linda exchanged worried glances. I found Kelly through LinkedIn yesterday. Interesting story, she told me. Very similar to mine, except she signed your NDA and took the money. $50,000, just like you offered me. But here's the thing. Kelly kept copies of everything before she left. This was a bluff, but their reactions told me I'd hit the mark. Janet looked like she might throw up. Kelly mentioned a patient named David Chen. Ring any bells? Elderly man, admitted for routine surgery, died from complications that the family was told were unavoidable. Except Kelly had documented evidence that his post-op pain medication was systematically under-administered to keep costs down. Insurance companies pay less for patients who require minimal pain management. Stop talking right now, Marcus commanded, but his authority was crumbling. The beautiful thing about medical records is that everything leaves a digital fingerprint. Even when you alter entries, the system maintains audit logs. IT departments are required to preserve that data for 7 years. Kelly knew that. I know that. And now the Illinois Department of Public Health is going to know that. I stood up slowly, enjoying the panic spreading across their faces. You see, I didn't just spend yesterday researching recording laws. I also contacted the State Health Department, the Joint Commission, and a very interesting investigative reporter at the Chicago Tribune who specializes in healthcare fraud. They're all very excited to hear about Memorial General's creative accounting practices. You have no proof of anything, Linda stammered, but her confidence was gone. Don't I? Mrs. Rodriguez's altered morphine records, the fabricated warnings in my personnel file, this recorded conversation where you admitted to having connections at hospitals across the country to blackball nurses, sounds like a conspiracy to me. Janet finally found her voice. Sarah, you don't understand how deep this goes. They'll destroy all of us. Who's they, Janet? How many people are involved in this? The entire billing department, half of pharmacy, 3 department heads. Janet was crying now. They told us it was just minor adjustments to improve efficiency. But then patients started getting sicker, staying longer, and the family started asking questions. Marcus grabbed Janet's arm roughly. Shut up. Right now. Get your hands off her, I stepped forward. Janet, if you help me document everything, I can protect you. Whistleblower laws shield people who report healthcare fraud. There's nothing to report, Marcus insisted desperately. This is all a misunderstanding that got blown out of proportion. My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it and smiled. Actually, Marcus, I think it just got bigger. That's a text from my contact at the Tribune. They've been investigating Memorial General for 3 months based on anonymous tips from former employees. Apparently, you're not as good at silencing people as you thought. The room fell silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights and Janet's quiet sobbing. Here's what's going to happen. I'm walking out of here with my job intact and my records cleaned up. Janet is going to help me document everything she knows about the billing fraud. And all of you are going to pray that federal investigators find enough cooperation to recommend reduced sentences. You can't prove any of this, Linda said weakly. Watch me. I headed for the door, then turned back one final time. Oh, and Marcus, that generous severance package, donate it to the families whose loved ones received inadequate care because of your profit margins. Consider it an investment in your karma. The best is yet to come. Sign up to see how this whistleblower report exposed a national scandal. Walking out of that conference room felt like stepping into a war zone. Within an hour, my keycard was deactivated, my locker was searched by security, and suddenly every administrator in the hospital knew my name. But I wasn't backing down. That evening, I met Janet at a 24-hour diner on North Michigan Avenue, far from Memorial General's reach. Janet looked like she'd aged 10 years since our confrontation. Her hands shook as she stirred sugar into her coffee for the 3rd time. Sarah, you have no idea what you've started, she whispered, glancing nervously at the other customers. They're not just altering records for insurance fraud. It's bigger than that. How much bigger? Pharmaceutical kickbacks. Memorial General has contracts with 3 major drug companies. The more expensive medications we administer, the higher our quarterly bonuses. But if patients recover too quickly with proper pain management, they discharge sooner and generate less revenue. My blood ran cold. So you've been under-medicating patients to keep them in the hospital longer. Not me personally, but yes. The billing department tracks average length of stay and medication costs per patient. Departments that exceed profit targets get rewarded. Those that don't get their budgets cut. Janet pulled out a manila envelope stuffed with documents. I've been keeping copies of everything for 2 years. Internal memos, billing guidelines, the bonus structure spreadsheets. I was too scared to come forward, but after what happened today, I opened the envelope and immediately understood why she'd been terrified. Email chains between administrators and pharmaceutical reps discussing optimal patient retention strategies. Bonus charts showing thousands of dollars in rewards for departments that maximize medication revenue. Most damning of all, a spreadsheet tracking patient mortality rates correlated with profit margins. Jesus Christ, Janet, how many people have died because of this? I don't know exactly, but Janet's voice broke. Remember Mr. Patterson last month? 92-year-old with pneumonia. His family kept asking why he wasn't getting better despite being on antibiotics for a week. He died of respiratory failure. I was there when his daughter signed the DNR. He should have been discharged after 4 days with proper medication dosages. Instead, they kept him weak and hospitalized until his lungs gave out. His insurance paid Memorial General over $80,000 for that extended stay. I felt sick. How many families had I consoled, thinking their loved ones died from natural causes, when profit-driven neglect was the real killer? We have to take this to the authorities tonight. It's too late for that. Janet looked toward the diner's entrance nervously. They know I'm talking to you. Marcus called me 3 times after you left. HR is scheduling an emergency meeting with all ICU staff tomorrow morning. What kind of meeting? Damage control. They're going to claim you're a disgruntled employee spreading false accusations. Anyone caught supporting your allegations will be terminated for cause. My phone rang. Unknown number with a Chicago area code. I answered cautiously. Sarah Mitchell. Yes, who is this? Detective Rodriguez with Chicago PD Healthcare Fraud Unit. We need to meet. Tonight. Janet went pale. Someone had been listening to our conversation. How did you get this number? Your contact at the Tribune passed it along. We've been building a case against Memorial General for 6 months. Your evidence could be the breakthrough we need. I looked around the diner suspiciously. How do I know you're really police? Because 3 Memorial General administrators just hired expensive criminal defense attorneys. That kind of legal firepower doesn't happen unless someone's scared. Meet me at the Federal Building, 219 South Dearborn. Come alone and bring everything you have. The line went dead. Janet was already gathering the documents frantically. Sarah, we have to go. If they're monitoring our phones, they can't legally tap our conversations without a warrant. Since when do these people care about legal? As if summoned by her words, 2 men in dark suits entered the diner. They scanned the room methodically before their eyes locked onto our table. Neither looked like they were there for coffee and pie. Back exit. Now, Janet whispered urgently. We slipped out through the kitchen, ignoring the cook's protests about unauthorized personnel in his workspace. The alley behind the diner was empty except for dumpsters and a few parked cars. Janet's Honda was blocked in by a black sedan that definitely hadn't been there when we arrived. They found us. Get in my car. I grabbed Janet's arm and pulled her toward my Civic parked on the street. We're going straight to the Federal Building. As I started the engine, the 2 men emerged from the diner and began walking purposefully toward us. In my rearview mirror, I saw the black sedan's headlights come alive. Sarah, they're following us. Good. Let them follow us straight to the FBI. But as we turned onto Dearborn Street, I realized Memorial General's corruption reached further than hospital billing. The black sedan wasn't just following us. It was herding us away from the Federal Building toward the darker, emptier streets near the Chicago River. Janet clutched the envelope of evidence like a life preserver as our car chase through downtown Chicago began. Whatever happened next, Memorial General had just escalated from healthcare fraud to something much more dangerous. The question was whether we'd live long enough to expose the truth. The black sedan forced us toward Lower Wacker Drive, away from the safety of downtown traffic and witnesses. My hands gripped the steering wheel as I navigated the maze of underpasses beneath Chicago streets. Janet was frantically photographing documents with her phone, trying to upload them to cloud storage before we were caught. Sarah, my phone has no signal down here. Keep trying. If something happens to us, that evidence needs to survive. The sedan's headlights grew larger in my mirror as we approached the Chicago River. Dead end ahead. They trapped us perfectly in the urban canyon of concrete and shadows. I pulled over under a flickering streetlight and turned to Janet. Whatever happens, don't give them the originals. Make them think the photos are all we have. The 2 men approached our car slowly, confidently. The taller one knocked on my window with something metallic, probably a gun. I rolled it down halfway. Ladies, step out of the vehicle. Slowly. We're going to the Federal Building to meet with law enforcement, I said as calmly as possible. Detective Rodriguez is expecting us. The shorter man laughed. Rodriguez isn't a detective. He's Memorial General's head of security. Congratulations, you just handed us everything we need to know about your investigation. My heart sank. They played us perfectly, using fake law enforcement to gather intelligence about what evidence we possessed. Out of the car. Now. Janet and I stepped into the cold Chicago night. The river smell, mixed with exhaust fumes, created an oppressive atmosphere under the bridge. This was where people disappeared in crime movies. Here's how this works, the tall man continued. You're going to hand over all documents, all recordings, and all copies of evidence related to Memorial General Hospital. In exchange, you get to walk away and forget this conversation ever happened. And if we refuse, then you become 2 more unfortunate statistics. Nurses working dangerous night shifts, victims of random street violence. Very sad. The hospital will probably establish a memorial scholarship in your honor. Janet was trembling beside me, but she clutched that envelope like her life depended on it. Because it did. The evidence is already with authorities. I lied desperately. Killing us won't stop the investigation. Actually, it will. See, there is no investigation. The Tribune reporter you contacted, he works for Memorial General's public relations firm. The State Health Department complaint, it was filed by our legal team to control the narrative. Every person you thought you were reporting to has been feeding information directly back to us. The systematic nature of their deception was breathtaking. They'd anticipated every move, controlled every contact, manipulated us into revealing the full extent of our evidence before eliminating us. You're lying. Am I? Check your phone. That Detective Rodriguez number? Call it back. Against my better judgment, I dialed the number. It went straight to voicemail. You've reached Memorial General Hospital security. Please leave a message. The shorter man smiled coldly. We've been 3 steps ahead of you since the moment you took those first photographs. The only question now is whether you die as heroes or as criminals. Sign a confession admitting you fabricated evidence to extort money from the hospital, and we'll make it quick. Go to hell. Wrong answer. The tall man raised his weapon, but suddenly bright lights flooded our location. 3 black SUVs surrounded us, and men in FBI windbreakers emerged with guns drawn. Federal agents. Drop your weapons. The Memorial General Security team was on the ground in seconds, hands zip-tied behind their backs. A woman in a blue FBI jacket approached us. Agent Patricia Kim, Healthcare Fraud Task Force. Are you Sarah Mitchell? Yes, but I don't understand. Janet Morrison contacted us 2 days ago through proper channels. Everything you've experienced tonight was monitored by federal surveillance. The fake Detective Rodriguez, the phony reporter contacts, all of it. We needed Memorial General to reveal the full scope of their criminal conspiracy. Janet looked as shocked as I felt. Janet, you called the FBI. I called them after you refused to sign the NDA. I knew they'd escalate, and I knew you'd need backup. I've been wearing a wire since yesterday. Agent Kim held up a recording device. We have everything. The coercion, the threats, the admission of pharmaceutical kickbacks, and now attempted murder of federal witnesses. Memorial General Hospital's executives are being arrested as we speak. The shorter security man looked up from the pavement. You have no idea how deep this goes. Memorial General is just one hospital in a network of 50 facilities across 12 states. We're small fish. Not anymore, Agent Kim replied. Your cooperation just earned you a reduced sentence recommendation. As the FBI loaded the security team into their vehicles, Agent Kim turned back to us. Ladies, you're going to be star witnesses in the biggest healthcare fraud prosecution in Illinois history. The pharmaceutical kickback scheme you uncovered has cost patients their lives across multiple states. I looked at Janet, who was crying again, but this time from relief instead of fear. What happens to Memorial General? Federal takeover while criminal and civil proceedings move forward. New administration, complete audit of patient records, and restitution for families affected by the fraud. The city's skyline glittered in the distance as we gave our statements to federal agents. Mrs. Rodriguez would finally get the proper medical care she deserved. David Chen's family would learn the truth about his death, and dozens of other patients would receive justice for the profit-driven neglect they'd suffered. It wasn't over yet. Trials would take years, and Memorial General's corruption network was apparently massive. But standing under that bridge in downtown Chicago, watching FBI agents arrest the people who tried to silence us, I felt something I hadn't experienced in days: hope. Sometimes doing the right thing means risking everything. But sometimes, if you're lucky and brave enough, everything works out exactly as it should. 6 months later, I stood in federal court watching Marcus Webb, Linda Chong, and 12 other Memorial General executives receive their sentences. The judge's words echoed through the packed courtroom. Healthcare fraud that results in patient deaths represents one of the most egregious violations of public trust imaginable. Marcus got 15 years. Linda received 12. The pharmaceutical executives who orchestrated the kickback scheme were sentenced to 20 years each. But the real victory wasn't their punishment, it was the systematic change their convictions triggered across American healthcare. The Memorial General investigation exposed a nationwide conspiracy involving 47 hospitals, 3 major pharmaceutical companies, and over 200 medical professionals. The FBI's Healthcare Fraud Task Force called it Operation Night Shift, named after the late-night discoveries that started it all. I never returned to Memorial General. The hospital was sold to a nonprofit organization that implemented transparent billing practices and patient advocacy programs. Mrs. Rodriguez, who survived and recovered fully under proper medical care, became the first patient to receive compensation from the Federal Restitution Fund. Janet and I both found positions at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, where she now serves as Director of Patient Safety, and I lead the new Ethics Committee. We work with medical students and nursing programs, teaching them to recognize and report healthcare fraud. Our story has become a case study in medical schools nationwide. The hardest part wasn't the death threats from pharmaceutical executives or the legal depositions that lasted for days. It was visiting families of patients who died unnecessarily, telling them their loved ones were killed by profit margins, not medical complications. David Chen's daughter cried when we explained how her father's pain medication was deliberately withheld to extend his hospital stay. But she also thanked us for giving her closure and ensuring his death wasn't meaningless. The federal investigation recovered over $400 million in fraudulent billing, but more importantly, it saved lives. New legislation requires independent oversight of hospital billing practices, pharmaceutical relationships must be disclosed publicly, and patient advocates have access to medical records in real time. Sometimes I think about that night under Lower Wacker Drive when I thought we were going to die for trying to do the right thing. The FBI later told us they'd been investigating Memorial General for 8 months before Janet contacted them. Our evidence provided the final pieces they needed to build criminal cases against the entire conspiracy. Agent Kim still sends me updates about related prosecutions nationwide. Last week, she arrested executives at a hospital network in Texas using the same pharmaceutical kickback model Memorial General pioneered. The corruption was everywhere, but now federal authorities know what to look for. I keep Mrs. Rodriguez's thank you letter on my desk as a reminder that individual courage can create systemic change. She wrote, "You gave me my life back, but more importantly, you gave me hope that there are still people willing to fight for what's right." Conclusion: every day, healthcare workers face impossible choices between institutional loyalty and patient safety. The system is designed to silence whistleblowers, but it only works when good people stay quiet. If you see something wrong, document it, report it, and never let anyone convince you that profit is more important than human life. What do you think about healthcare workers who risk everything to expose corruption? Have you ever faced a similar ethical dilemma in your workplace? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about people who chose courage over comfort.